Good evening. I'm Kathleen Gavin, the Executive Director of the Minnesota Ovarian Cancer Alliance. I want to thank you for joining us tonight for our third Living Well meeting of 2020. Our Living Well series is supported by Tesaro's Not on My Watch campaign. Tonight we'll be discussing complementary therapies, and we have a very special guest, Maureen Anderson, from the Earl E. Bakken Center for Spirituality and Healing at the University of Minnesota. At the end of Maureen's talk, you'll have a chance to have your questions answered in a discussion that will be moderated by my colleague Stephanie Gliniani. Thank you again for joining us this evening.
I'm Dr. Maureen Anderson. I'm an integrative nurse clinician at the University of Minnesota. I am here today on behalf of the University of Minnesota's Earl E. Bakken Center for Spirituality and Healing. Today, we will be exploring the use of integrative therapies. And this first segment here, we will be discussing mind-body therapies. So usually when I'm face-to-face with an audience, which in today's world isn't as frequent, I do like to gauge and get an understanding of where people are at with integrative therapies, how often they practice integrative therapies, and what their understanding is. However, for today, because we don't have the face-to-face audience, I did have MOCA send out a brief survey just to collect some understanding from the audience about who practices integrative therapies and where the members' knowledge is at. And I got an overwhelming 70% of respondents say that they utilize integrative therapies 1 to 2 times per month. So this is really significant to me because it tells me that there is a need for ongoing knowledge and education about integrative therapies and how to safely incorporate them into our daily practices. So for today, I want to give a brief overview of what integrative therapies are when I talk about them. And my practice is consistent with what the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health recognizes, and it's that there's 3 primary classifications. Mind-body therapies, which are going to include things like meditation, mindfulness, yoga, clinical hypnosis, progressive muscle relaxation, and guided imagery, along with a few others, as well as natural products. This is going to include things like supplements, herbs. This is where CBD oil would fall in, and essential oils, and then other complementary health approaches. And that is going to be traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, naturopathy, homeopathy, and functional medicine. So this is just a brief list of some mind-body therapies that are available. This is actually the most researched and evidence-based list of mind-body therapies, so where we have evidence to say that there is benefit and people should be incorporating mind-body therapies into their practices. Mind-body therapies are also the most easily accessible of the integrative therapies, and they're the easiest to incorporate independently into your lifestyle. So before we go any further, I do want to just take a moment to actually engage in a mind-body and strengthen this mind-body connection that we're going to be talking about. So this is just a brief practice. It's about 1 minute long. It's based on the application Headspace. Many of you may have heard of it. But before we begin, just allow yourself to get into a comfortable position. Allow yourself to sink into that comfortable position and just take a scan of your body going from head to toes and see where you are at. Just notice sensations in your body. Maybe you notice your head is buzzing. If you have your hair up in a ponytail, maybe you notice that ponytail feels a little bit tight. If you have glasses on, no glasses, progressing down into your shoulders, just take a scan, take note of where everything is at, and try not to label it as good or bad, but rather just take an inventory.
So no matter what's going on in your life right now, no matter how many thoughts are racing around your mind, no matter how the body's feeling, just take a moment to sit down and take a big, deep breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, a sense of taking in fresh air, the lungs expanding. As you breathe out, a sense of letting go of any stress in the body, in the mind, Just feeling the muscles soften and relax. And close your eyes if you'd like to. One more. Breathing deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just take a moment to pause. Allow the thoughts to come and go. And then just gently opening the eyes again.
Just 1 minute practices like this really strengthens that mind-body connection that we're going to be talking about, and can make profound impacts not only in the moment, but long-term for your health. So what is this mind-body connection we keep talking about? It's an actual physical connection that exists between our mind and our bodies. So our bodies are going to feel our thoughts, emotions, and our worries. And conversely, our minds are going to experience the functions of our body, things like sleep, exercise, consumption, and pain. So what's powerful about this connection is that we can change our behaviors to positively impact and change that mind-body connection by taking moments, such as we just did, of intentional deep breathing and thoughtfulness, by choosing healthy food options consistently, exercising regularly, getting outside and spending time in nature, spending time with our loved ones and our friends, and prioritizing healthy sleep. So this big word that I have there, the psychoneuroendocrine process, is the biomedical terminology for what this mind-body connection is. And it's actually psycho, so meaning our mind, neuro, our nervous system, and endocrine, our endocrine and hormone processes. So it's really building the bond between these two, recognizing that all of them are going to impact each other depending on the situation, depending on what is being experienced. So for example, say you're going to go into a doctor's appointment. It's a big doctor's appointment. You have some scans, maybe some tests coming up. And even leading up to it, you start to notice your mind is racing. That psycho system is engaging. You start to have worrying thoughts. You might start to notice that you're getting anxious and nervous, and that nervous system is starting to kick in. Maybe your heart rate's going up, your blood pressure. You're finding it hard to breathe. And our endocrine process, you start kicking into overdrive your hormones like cortisol. Maybe you're becoming a little bit more insulin resistant because of that. You're having epinephrine adrenaline run through your body, and so you're kind of jittery. This is how those different systems coordinate together and really form that mind-body connection. So mind-body practices target the relaxation response. And that relaxation response is the reverse of that overstimulation, of that stress response that we experience during different situations. And through mind-body practices, we can actually learn to down-regulate that relaxation response and start to learn to control it. Why we call mind-body skills practices is because they take time to develop, and they will continue to develop and evolve over time and change throughout our lifetime. And they build upon a concept that we're going to explore called neuroplasticity, where they can actually change the structure of the brain. So the results of mind-body practices become not only a practice that you're engaging in the moment, but they really become a new way of being. And through these continual practices and exposure, mind-body skills actually build resilience. So neuroplasticity, I love this image here because it's really our brain's ability to adapt and make new connections over time. We used to think that the brain stopped growing and stopped developing and that we weren't able to actually develop and create new brain cells. However, we have learned that that is not the case. We are constantly creating new brain cells, and we're developing new neural pathways, so new ways of thinking and being consistently. And these are things that develop with consistency and repetition over time. So think of any type of behavior that you're talking about, whether it be you want to start running or you want to cut back on coffee or alcohol intake. Those things develop consistency and repetition over time to build those new neurological pathways. So I love this quote: as you go through life, your brain undergoes extraordinary development. Your brain is the most adaptable, modifiable organ in your body, and it can change both positively and negatively by how you choose to use it every single day. So that really, I hope that empowers you as much as it does me. Our brain changes consistently and constantly by what inputs we are giving it. And so if you can positively make changes and consistently practice those over time, you will see change. Change in your demeanor, change in your relationships, change in the way you go about living. And that is what is so impactful about mind-body therapies. Now, they sound kind of easy, but developing them and practicing them is really where the challenge begins. So I want to talk about two different mind-body therapies that you can go ahead and practice and leave with today, in addition to the breathing exercise we've already done. But one of them is progressive muscle relaxation. If you haven't taken time, and you haven't, or if you just haven't experienced this before, I highly recommend it. This is good for all age groups and everyone. It is simple to do, and you don't need to go to a practitioner to utilize it. But it's really a sequencing of tensing and relaxing specific muscle groups. It's going to down-regulate that nervous system and really engage in that relaxation response that we talked about. Progressive muscle relaxation eases physical symptoms of stress and anxiety, and it has been found to improve performance, public speaking, insomnia, and anxiety. Another practice is one called guided imagery. Many high performers use this actually because it allows them to visualize and experience something without actually having to go through the experience of it. So it's a state of focus relaxation. It draws upon all five senses and it reflects on previous experiences. This is an important piece that I like to make sure to address, because what it really does is I can't create and cultivate a new experience for someone. I can't tell someone to taste orange if they've never tasted an orange. I can't tell someone to experience this beautiful mountain if they've never seen what a mountain is. Individuals also can visualize desired outcomes. So we see high performers like Michael Phelps when he was swimming in the Olympics. He would engage in guided imagery, knowing what his race would be like. It can also help individuals overcome fears and anxieties. So I love this quote, and I remind myself of it often when I'm stressed out or overwhelmed. But don't let your mind bully your body into thinking it must carry the burden of all of its worries. Spend some time, do your body and mind some service by teaching your mind how to decrease its stress so that your body doesn't have to carry all of that burden. The first segment we discussed mind-body therapies. In the second segment, we will be discussing natural products. So when we talk about natural products, we're talking about essential oils, supplements, herbs. This is also where CBD oil would fall within this category as well. It's imperative to talk about the concerns when we talk about natural products in the realm of integrative therapies. So the natural products they're unregulated. The FDA doesn't observe and supervise what is being released, and the majority of natural products are classified as textiles. So they're not going through, we don't necessarily know always where they're grown, how they're being processed, where they're being manufactured, how they're being delivered. We just don't know those because they're not regulated. So that is a very, very big concern for everyone within the healthcare field when it comes to advising people on how to use natural products, but specifically anyone who's had a significant diagnosis in their life, specifically ovarian cancer, and has gone through any type of treatment, because we just don't know the interactions that are occurring. There's a lack of evidence with natural products, again, because they're not regulated. We're not undergoing various scientific research studies to see their efficacy and have direct impact There's potential for contamination again of toxins, heavy metals, pesticides. That's specific for, that really falls within all the categories of natural products, but specifically herbs, and herbs that are coming from the East. They have just been found to have a significant amount of heavy metals within them. And if you are using natural products, just be aware of the unproven medical claims that might be used. This is much more observed now, and you don't see it happening as much, but you might see terminology such as curative and treatment-based. And that is concerning because integrative therapies and natural products of integrative therapies are not to be curative. They are not treatment-based, and they are not to take place of proven medical treatments. So essential oils, again, the FDA does not regulate the safety or purity of these supplements, and they are widely accessible. So there's varying degrees of what is available out there. You might find that someone is creating essential oils on their own, and then you might find that there are companies out there who have undergone voluntary FDA surveys to see their quality and purity. And so there's just a very wide variety of what is available. So if you're buying essential oils, make sure to purchase high quality essential oils from reputable sources. Again, maybe don't buy them from your friend who's making them on their own, especially if you're using them to really address symptoms. If you're just using them in your house to diffuse, maybe you want to put them into some cleaning products, sure, you can use your friends. That's just fine. But if you're really looking to address symptoms and manage stress or improve your sleep or quality of life, you really do want high quality oils. Know that less is better. So with essential oils, they've actually been found to, individuals have become more sensitive to them over time. So if you use lavender every day, chances are you're not going to develop a type of tolerance to lavender where you're going to be needing more later on. You really only need a small amount, and that will go a long way. Again, be cautious of different marketing statements that are out there. They're not to be curative. They're not to address and treat various symptoms, but they are there to support and help. And know your resources. This is going to be true for all of the natural products we discussed, but specifically essential oils as they become ever more prevalent within society. Cancer.gov has a pretty extensive site and list of essential oils and supportive evidence within there. So recommended use. Inhalation and topical are the safest and probably what you come in contact with the most. So inhalation, essential oils can sometimes come in just aroma sticks, and those are really beneficial. You might see these in hospitals or companies sell them. And then topical, if you're using them topical, make sure to dilute them in a carrier oil, or make sure that they are coming diluted in carrier oil, such as jojoba oil or coconut oil. The reason for this is undiluted oil, so just neat oil, is way too potent and way too strong. You don't need that much if you're applying it topically. You can use it as inhalation, but topically, you want to make sure that it's actually going to make it into your system. It's going to get through our layer of skin, and you also just don't need it that potent. It can be toxic, it can actually burn your layers of skin. Never ingest essential oils. We're seeing this more and more in the hospital systems, that people are coming in and ingesting them, and that they're recommended to ingest. If there's an essential oil that you are looking to ingest, really the safest option is going to be just finding that product naturally as it comes. So if you're ingesting lemon oil, the best way to do that is to just buy a lemon and use some of the rind that way, or use some of the juice and ingest that oil in that way. It's more bioavailable to your system, and it's not going to be toxic. So when you ingest essential oils, it will burn your esophagus. So if you've been exposed to things like chemotherapy or radiation, where your epithelial cells are already a little bit compromised, you don't want to further damage them. These are just very standard and basic oils. They are the ones that are typically researched, and there might be some evidence to support them, but just looking how different oils can be used to address symptom management. Why I chose these ones too is because typically these ones blend nicely together. So if you're looking for a blend, this could be a way to look at some of the oils that will be beneficial. So now as we talk about supplements, I get a lot of questions about supplements. These are some of the supplements that the MOCA members had asked about as well. Within each kind of population, there's various supplements that are sometimes that different groups understand or know about or are recommended to use. So I just wanted to address some very basic ones here that might help you, or at least know how to ask questions to your healthcare providers if you're interested. I don't want to go deeply through each one of these, but glutathione is a supplement that you can get. It's a strong antioxidant, and it really helps bind to toxins and rid the body of toxins. So it's made from 3 amino acids, cysteine, glutamate, and glycine. It comes in various routes. So if you're taking this as an outpatient, or you're trying to buy this from the supermarket or the co-op, whatever it might be, the supplements are actually the least effective route. So what we found is that they're not being digested and absorbed as well, and so the benefits just aren't really there. The best approach is through IV, inhalation, and topical. Those seem to be more effective. And again, they're just poorly absorbed. You can find them also in meat, garlic, broccoli, asparagus, avocados, and spinach. I always like to recommend to patients that if they are interested in taking a supplement, first look at the foods. Look at how you can actually get that supplement as it's naturally occurring, because that's going to be the most bioavailable way for your body to digest it and absorb it. So quercetin is actually used in amino acid or Tylenol overdose. It helps with cirrhosis, prostatitis, common allergies, atherosclerosis or plaque buildup within our arteries, and with substance abuse. It's a very strong antioxidant. It's anti-inflammatory, and it's antihistamine as well. So it can cause significant GI distress, such as diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, rash, fatigue. It's available in tablets form, but it's also available in onions, apples, green tea, teas in general, green leafy vegetables, and beans. So vitamin D, chances are the majority of individuals in Minnesota at some point in time do need vitamin D, just because we don't have as much direct sunlight that we're getting in routinely throughout the year. It helps with osteoporosis, multiple sclerosis, seasonal affect disorder, and it has been found to help with cancer prevention. It's anti-proliferative. That's where you see that that cancer prevention component. Anti-inflammatory and immunoregulatory. It's not to be taken if an individual has a history of kidney stones, because it can calcify within the kidneys and doesn't pass through our kidneys and get metabolized. And it's readily available. You can get it in tablets, but also in fortified milk, cereals, egg yolks, and fish. Vitamin C. So we're actually seeing a lot of vitamin C and vitamin D being discussed about as it relates to COVID. Have conversations with your medical providers about this, because we don't want people over consuming supplements and over consuming vitamin C and vitamin D. Vitamin C helps with our immune system and fortifying our immune system so that we can strengthen and actually develop the cells that we need to fight infection. It's an antioxidant. If you're taking iron, you want to make sure that if you are taking iron, that you're also having some vitamin C so that it's more absorbed. High doses of vitamin C can cause nausea and diarrhea, but it's really rare to have be consuming that much vitamin C. It typically just gets excreted out in the urine. And available forms include bell peppers, broccolis, citrus fruits, supplements, and then IV as well. So you'll notice some of these supplements that we talked about are available in IV form. If you are going and seeking IV supplement therapy and IV vitamin support, you really do need to be having a conversation with your medical provider, because it can actually interact with many of the medications used in treatment. And so we want to make sure that our cellular receptors are readily available for the high dose medications that we're receiving to fight cancer. And we don't want that to be impeding with or having to fight with any of these vitamins, if that makes sense. I do want to address, I had a comment in one of the surveys that a healthcare provider said, don't worry about taking vitamins and supplements. It just leads to really expensive urine. And in most cases, that is true. Vitamins get secreted out within the urine. And if you're over consuming vitamins, you're just really creating expensive urine. The best approach for this is you can talk to your medical provider and see if there's areas that you're deficient in. If you're deficient in vitamin D, if you're deficient in vitamin C, if you need some more of that support. Another approach would be to go and see a functional medicine provider or a functional nutritionist who can run additional labs and just see what areas you do need supplementation. Like any type of medication or support that you would be using, it's not to be used necessarily throughout your entire lifespan. Just because you need vitamin D once doesn't mean you'll need it forever. It is important that you follow up on it and consistently see if you are needing that form of supplement. There have been a few questions about sleep and supplements for sleep and how to cultivate good sleep. So these are 4 kind of standard supplements to support healthy sleep cycles: magnesium, melatonin, L-theanine, and 5-HTP. So magnesium, when it's commonly used, is deficiencies, seizure disorders, and a diet lacking variety. It's going to help with nerve function, glucose and blood pressure balance, muscle function, and it's needed for production of bones, protein, and our DNA. It's readily found in our foods such as green leafy vegetables, nuts, whole grains, and legumes. It will cause diarrhea if you're taking too much of it. So recognize that if you're getting GI symptoms, that it could be because of a magnesium supplement. Melatonin, I think most of us have seen this. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. It's readily available. Most healthcare providers support its use. What I will say is don't plan to use it necessarily forever. Where you see it's most impactful is when you can take it at critical moments. So if you are jet lagged, or if you have a scan coming up or an appointment coming up and you need that additional sleep support, use it in those moments, or when you've had periods of disrupted sleep, but you don't want to become reliant on it. You want your body to be able to create it on its own. L-theanine is readily available in green tea. It's also as an oral supplement, depending on how you would like to take it. It actually promotes relaxation and eases stress. It improves mental performance and attention, improves depression, symptoms of depression and anxiety as well. And 5-HTP, where we see this is it actually helps with mood and stabilizing mood. Again, if you have a mental health diagnosis, please do not rely on 5-HTP as a mood stabilizer, but it can support our mood support if you're noticing some mild irritability or some periods of feeling down and then periods of feeling really elevated. It can just help stabilize mildly. It's readily available. It's converted from tryptophan, so that component that we always talk about around Thanksgiving that we have in turkey, but it's also found in chicken, milk, potatoes, pumpkins, and flower seeds. So if we're talking about supplements for sleep, I really like to prioritize talking about proper sleep hygiene as well. This is going to be, if there's one thing you'll leave with today, I really want it to be proper sleep hygiene. We are finding there's a ton of research now to support that sleep and adequate sleep is a primary contributing factor to many chronic health diseases, and it's needed during recovery. Recovery from whatever it might be, whether it be a strenuous exercise or whether it be cancer-related treatment and significantly stressful moments in our life. So establishing a routine. I like to talk about children and infants when I talk about sleep hygiene. We so prioritize what their sleep habits are like, how to get infants to sleep, how to get children to sleep. But as we age and we get older, we start to lose that. We start to think it's less important. However, it is more important at those periods of time. We want to maintain our health. And so this is a list of advice on how to really develop sleep hygiene and prioritize it. Sleep hygiene isn't only in the evening and comes right before you go to sleep, but it's also a practice of when you wake up in the morning. What are you doing? How are you making this a beneficial sanctuary that is beneficial for you? How do you wake up? Do you wake up by pressing your snooze alarm 5 times? Or do you wake up once? You get up as soon as your alarm goes off or your internal alarm starts to wake you. That's going to be the most beneficial because that's when your body and your mind want you to wake up, is when you're naturally doing so. So I encourage you to look how to create a routine in the morning to really support proper sleep hygiene. So we should talk about omegas if we're talking about supplements. So there's 2 different types of omegas that we most likely like to support, and that's omega-3, but having this ratio, this balance of omega-6 and omega-3. So omegas are readily available either in supplement form, but also in the food that we eat, primarily in fish, but also avocados, nuts, and various oils. There's been a little bit of conversation about CBD oil, and it's very similar to what I talk about in terms of essential oils and supplements, is that it's unregulated. We really don't know where it's coming from. And it's part of the textile community. So it's not actually meant for consumption and to be absorbed within the skin the way that it is regulated. But CBD oil, it's derived from the cannabis sativa plant. CBD is a component of hemp plants, as well as marijuana plants. However, in the United States, CBD is it should only be derived from hemp plants. So the World Health Organization states that in humans, CBD exhibits no effects indicative of any abuse or dependence potential. So really the only FDA-approved use of CBD oil is in extremely rare and severe forms of childhood epilepsy. However, individuals have reported that it's helpful with anxiety, insomnia, arthritic pain, and inflammatory and neuropathic pain. So some takeaways: CBD oil can actually increase the levels of various medications in your blood. It's not regulated. We don't know specific therapeutic doses of it. If you are using CBD oil, I really urge you to know the source, know how it's handled, know where it's coming from, and know its purity level. And make sure that you are consulting with your medical team. Make sure that they know that you're using any type of CBD oil, but really any type of essential oil or supplement as well. But at this point in time, I'm just going to say thank you, and I look forward to our discussion going ahead.
Hello, everyone. We hope you have enjoyed our Living Well meeting on complementary therapies. I'm Stephanie Gliniani, and I'm MOCA's Community Support Program Manager. And I'm so glad that you were here with us tonight. Hopefully we'll get Maureen up here, and we're going to do a little Q&A with her. So while I wait for her, I want to mention that there is a handout on the presentation and resource tab. It should say more, and you can click on that and there's a tab. Hi, Maureen. Thank you
Hello.
for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your time, your presentation, and the Q&A. So thank you. We know that people probably have a lot of questions because you talked really about a wide range of topics, and so we encourage people to anonymously ask any questions. There's a question chat box, so feel free to send any questions to my way, and I'll ask Maureen. But I know people are curious as to how do we find qualified integrative health providers? What should we be looking for?
Well, Stephanie, thank you. That's a great question to start with, because that is something, especially if there's a vulnerable community that is seeking to understand that. And the members of MOCA would fall within that vulnerable community. So we want to make sure that individuals are finding reputable sources and finding individuals who really do know what they're doing, because as demonstrated within the presentation, there are a lot of integrative therapies that are available out there, and they're not as tightly regulated as the medical community and the rest of the healthcare community. So finding reputable sources is really critical to the care that's going to be received. So first and foremost, the places that I would look would be with your medical team. Actually, many of the healthcare systems, and for sure in the Twin Cities, are starting to have integrative providers, maybe not an entire department, not an entire team, but a couple of members who are knowledgeable about therapies that are available out there. And then throughout the presentation, I did within each segment have a list of credentials that are typically associated with the specific therapies that are being addressed. Something that I will say is the majority of the therapies are additional certifications. So yeah, any of the therapies that you are receiving from someone, they should really have a licensure as well. So when I'm saying licensure, I'm meaning have an RN degree, so be a registered nurse, preferably an advanced practicing registered nurse, and a medical doctor, so an MD. They might be an acupuncturist who have specific understanding and a master's and doctorate degree in traditional Chinese medicine. They might be, it varies state to state, but you could be receiving acupuncture from a physical therapist as well. So really finding someone within the healthcare team that has a license is going to be the most important, because some of the practices, whether it be energy therapy like Reiki or healing touch, that can be offered by a lot of different people. And you don't necessarily have to have a licensure to provide that. And you just want to know what the specific risks associated with your unique person, who you are specifically. So that would be a broad sense of what I would look for when I recommend someone to specific providers. I want to see what their credentials are, and I want to make sure that they have a licensure, because then whatever they're practicing falls within that means of a license.
Okay, that makes sense, and that is especially important for our community of ovarian cancer survivors. So thank you for that. We do have a question. It says, are integrative health providers practicing now during COVID?
Yes. So yes, as a broad answer, yes, many of us are. It does depend on what it is that you're looking for. So myself, I'm an integrative nurse clinician. So we are practicing right now in the hospital setting and in the clinic setting. I know that Alina's integrative health team is practicing as well right now. Some of them are offering virtual appointments. So with the virtual appointments, of course, you're losing the hands-on approach, which is really important in integrative health. It's a huge component of it, but so is the relationship building, which can happen in a virtual setting. So much of the interaction is, it's that relationship building. It's integrative health is really understanding the whole person, not understanding just one component of them, just one diagnosis, just one medication. It's really understanding all the unique aspects of an individual. And so if you're going by means of a virtual appointment, that is a great starting place. So many of the practitioners are still practicing during this COVID world. However, things like massage therapy, that's something that's not being practiced outside of the clinical setting. You couldn't just go necessarily and get a massage. Other components would be energy therapy. You're going to want to be looking for, again, a licensed professional. So during this COVID world, because my previous recommendation was finding a licensed professional, the majority of us are still offering services in that during this current COVID world.
Okay, good. Well, that's good to know. Another question, are these services covered by insurance?
Yeah, I take kind of a deep sigh because, again, it's very dependent on the place that you're at. In the hospital setting, many of them are because of just the structure of the service that's being received. In some cancer clinics as well, they are covered as a complementary service. Complementary, not complementary therapies, but actually complementary of cost.
Okay.
And it does require oftentimes a question. So if you are in the clinic, if you are in that space, asking if there's specific services. You know, if you are looking for massage, asking. It's not always right out in front of you. It maybe was right out in front of you at that first appointment, but if you're weeks, months, years out of that first initial appointment in the clinic, services probably changed. And unfortunately, in the world of healthcare, we don't always let people know that they are available. So sometimes they're covered by insurance. You can get specific, you can get like a prescription for a massage, let's say.
Okay.
That unrelenting deep cancer pain, oftentimes massage will be covered. It just is going to be dependent on your insurance provider. And unfortunately, the best recommendation I can get is flip over your insurance card and call the customer service line and see what is offered.
Right.
Acupuncture is pretty frequently covered. And sometimes HSAs and FSAs, you can get to cover things like essential oils and supplements with symptom use.
Okay. All right, another one. What about any tips on how to get these into our routine? How do we start doing this and really making this a part of our everyday life of using these techniques?
Mm-hmm. I love this question. Thank you to whoever asked this, because I am a creature of habit and I love my own routines. And I do believe that the way to start incorporating these are to make them a routine, to make them a habitual practice. And so I really like to focus on sleep, that start and end of the day. So really where you root your day in, and starting simple and starting with actually getting up and out of bed in the morning. Don't press your snooze alarm 8 times. It's easy to do in this COVID world because we don't always have places to go. It's just moving to the couch. And so what I do recommend is starting with sleep and starting with a habit there, and getting up and doing a very simple gratitude practice. So sitting, journaling, having a gratitude practice. If you're looking to incorporate essential oils in your life, I would start there as well. And using something that's citrus-based that might be more alerting and waking you up. And some basic movement. Maybe that's going to be yoga, and really developing that mind-body connection. So that's where I like to tell people to start. I would also say in the evening time. So we really prioritize for kids, and I'm sorry if you can hear my child upstairs. I'm not sure if you can or not. But we so prioritize and have a really structured approach to bedtime and what we do at night and how we put our kids down. But as adults, we start to lose that. We all of a sudden, sleep is the first thing to go when we become busy. And it's really the place to set us up for that next day. You know, it's the closing of one day, but it's really setting us up for the next day. And if you can incorporate practices in that bedtime routine, again, if you want essential oils, using some before bed like lavender, incorporating magnesium into your life and taking a magnesium supplement before you sleep. Yeah. Again, I preface yoga because that's a big mind-body practice that kind of hits all the different tiers. You get some movement, you get some stretching in, and you get some thoughtfulness.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you. We do have another question, and I encourage other people too to ask questions. Feel free to send them in the chat box. Specific therapies for either lymphedema or neuropathy, which both are very big with ovarian cancer. So is there anything that you would recommend or anything we should talk to our providers about for either of those?
Yes. So I specifically work with individuals going through blood and marrow transplant. And so we do see a lot of lymphedema and we see a lot of neuropathy. And it depends on what you're experiencing with both of those, whether you are in the lymphedema stage of having significant swelling or dependent edema that you can't get rid of versus maintaining and looking to not damage those areas. Again, this is probably one of the primary reasons why I say you want to work with someone who has a license and understands the medical diagnosis and the previous treatment, so that you don't go and see a massage therapist who doesn't know and can do some further damage. And so massage is actually beneficial for both of them. Now, if you have a neuropathy that you cannot be touched, you can't even have sheets over your feet, massage might not be the best way to go first. But what I found with those individuals is actually energy therapy works really well. Because with energy therapy, what I'm talking about are things like Reiki, healing touch, could even be craniosacral therapy, but you don't even have to put your hands on an individual, but you feel that connection. Mm-hmm. When I explain it to people who are hesitant to try energy therapy, I always like to tell them, well, think about when you walk into a room and if it's completely dark and you can feel kind of where things are at. Your body can sense where things are at, even if you can't see them. We know that exists. Or when I'm talking about the infant and child connection or infant and mother connection, we don't know all the benefits that skin-to-skin contact has. We don't necessarily know all the whys about why an infant's heart rate stabilizes, why their breathing stabilizes, even their hormones stabilize with skin-to-skin contact. But that's what I try and relate to energy therapy. Energy therapy really has the ability to calm and down-regulate our systems. So with things such as neuropathy, you have this overstimulation of our nervous system that's shooting this firing pain, and energy therapy can do a really good job at just calming that down, neutralizing it to a place that hopefully an individual can experience some type of massage. So that would be my recommendation, is starting with things like energy and massage to help with those.
Okay, perfect. What about, so there's a couple questions and they might kind of be around the same, they might kind of go similar, but how does a ovarian cancer survivor advocate for herself for, when she's meeting with her provider on that she wants to do these therapies and they don't necessarily meet face to face, and then the other one was with a caregiver. So how do they advocate that this is something they really want to do and to kind of get them on board?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I guess that there's a couple of different questions there. So first and foremost, I want to say, let your providers and let the caregivers know that you are using integrative therapies. Whatever that therapy might be, it's important to know. From a healthcare perspective, it might seem like, oh, I don't necessarily want to tell someone that I'm doing this. This seems counterintuitive to my overall medical goal. But what it really does show and demonstrate is that you're committed to your health. you're committed to helping yourself feel better, and that speaks volumes to your healthcare team, that you really are trying to find something, and it starts to build that bridge so we can connect with you.
Yep.
Now, the second part of that question, how to advocate for yourself, is if you're finding something that works for you and you are finding something that brings you happiness, that brings you calm and peace, from a very basic physiological standpoint, that is decreasing your cortisol levels. That is allowing your body to rest and heal.
Yep.
I like to tell people that integrative therapies are not a set of belief systems. It's not whether you believe in them or whether you don't believe in them. It's science-based. And so they exist. And so if your healthcare provider says something like, I don't believe in them, well, we believe in things like sleep. We believe in things like our hormone regulation. And integrative therapies are really special at targeting those. And those are components that's a whole aspect of our current healthcare system that's missing, is really how to allow our bodies to calm down and to rest. And so those are some things that I would utilize to speak to your healthcare providers, saying, you know, I found that maybe it's massage, maybe it's yoga or acupuncture or essential oils, saying things such as, this is really calming to me. This is helping me sleep. Those are things that will maybe cue in your healthcare provider to say, okay, I'm listening. Tell me a little bit more. How are you using them? And that's so much why I preface in my practice how to incorporate them safely.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always even just talk just in general about having that communication with your healthcare team. So being upfront, asking questions, and advocating for yourself. So that's very important. So yeah, thank you for that. Do you have any specific integrative therapies before or after treatment?
I guess I'm a little confused about
the question. Well, and maybe, you know, we think of when we start treatment before we're going to get ready to, you know, begin our, you know, standard treatment. And then I think afterwards of things that we could do, you know, post survivorship. So what things can we be doing, you know, right when we finish or after that will help us become stronger, more mentally mentally in a good place, things that could help, I guess, in that survivorship stage too. Because a lot of times I think when you're going through treatment, you just go through the motions, you're doing everything you can, you know, and I've heard from a lot of people, then they finish and go, oh my gosh, now what? But those are really, that's a good time, especially I think, to really start using these self-care modalities and integrative therapies to really help in the survivorship stage too. So I guess.
Yeah, so thank you for explaining.
I don't know
if
that is how that might not have been how the question was, but that's how I'm reading it.
Yeah, I was getting a little confused of if it was before each like round of treatment or before and after. But if we're looking at it, I would say most people are just they're nervous, they're scared, but really just trying to prepare your body in a way that is as stable as it can be. So what I mean by that is, actually, I would suggest talking to your providers about removing any additional supplements that you're taking. If you're someone who likes a lot of vitamins and likes to take a lot of supplements, and maybe you have a smoothie every morning that's loaded with different types of powders and proteins and whatnot, I would probably start with taking out some of that stuff, the additional factors, and just trying to clean up your body so that it starts to get to a state of what is normal for us. Where is our state of homeostasis for ourselves? That would be probably the first place I'd start with. Now, if you're on something that's prescription based, I'm not saying just stop that, but it's those additional factors. If you're on the next step that I would even go to is looking at your diet. Now, not overloading your diet with vitamin C to prepare your body for what's to come necessarily, but just trying to create a sense of balance with your diet, looking at how much fat you're getting, how many carbohydrates you're getting, and looking at how many proteins you're getting, and really trying to create a colorful plate.
Okay.
These seem like really simple and easy things, but these tend to be the hardest things to change on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would also try and prioritize sleep and what that looks like, and getting into a really solid, good sleep schedule, because that's very easy to fall out of when you get into a hospital setting. And that's another way that you can advocate for yourself, is letting people know sleep is really important to me and I need to have my sleep.
Yeah.
And if you're in the hospital getting rounds of chemotherapy and you're relatively stable while you're in the hospital, you don't necessarily have to have your vital signs taken
Mm-hmm.
every 1 to 4 hours. There's room to negotiate with those.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've said that through kind of out too, of even just starting the habit, the simple things, start one thing or give yourself 5 minutes. Are there any little tidbits that you want to leave us with of considering looking at, integrative therapies and how our community can integrate them, or, really the benefit of what you feel would be helpful for our attendees?
Yeah, if there's one thing that I want to leave people with, is that really taking some time as you start to incorporate integrative therapies into your life. They don't all need to be important to you, but really finding where your values lie.
Mm-hmm.
Do you highly value food? Maybe focus on food. Are you someone who really thrives on physical activity, or developing that mind-body connection through things like yoga or progressive muscle relaxation? Find what works for you. Don't try and incorporate every single integrative therapy we talked about today. That is going to be very overwhelming. Just pick one. Pick one to start with and make it part of your day.
Yep. That's amazing. I think that was perfect to leave us with, and it's important for all of us to think about. So before we close up, I do want to say this was almost perfect timing, almost till 8 o'clock. So thank you everyone for your questions, and Maureen, thank you so much for being here with us. And I want to thank everyone who is with us, our survivors, our caregivers, our loved ones, and we hope that you'll stay connected with us through through our support programs and our upcoming events. We do have many events coming up in September, which is Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. So stay up to date with us, and keep up on the details on our website, on our Facebook page. So we are here for you, and thank you again, Maureen, for being here with us tonight. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, hope everyone has a good evening. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks, Maureen. Bye.